DC in general is going up. I think like a lot of pockets of DC have been developed really to a point where it's a much more livable city than it was even when I moved here in 07.
Yeah. You know, when I visit DC, I'm typically, well, not nowadays, but like when my grandparents were alive, they were in, you know, Northwest. You know what I'm saying? Like Georgia Ave, Northwest, Walter Reed.
Yeah, which is really a much nicer area in general, right?
Yeah,
like,
close to Silver Springs, right? Like
that's and even though like you're edging northwest, northeast when you get towards Silver Spring, that's actually more northeast, but that's like that's outside of the actual district. But northeast used to be really bad too, just closer to the city center, probably. You know what I mean? So like, because northeast and southeast typically are the places where you find the hottest action, like the most stuff popping when it comes to criminal activity. Northwest is starting to get a lot more of it these days, but Northeast, man, like I have family that live in Columbia Heights too, and now that's a much more gentrified part of town. But my aunties that lived out there back in the day, man, what? That was like where Rayfield Edmond was like running stuff and doing all that, you know, slinging a lot of coke. So like, man, we would go to their house and they said, you go hang out in the basement. But then we left the house, we went straight to the car and left and came back. We weren't allowed to hang on the porch. They had bars and we couldn't go outside. Like my buddy Alex lived in a similar area to where they lived at the time in a row house. And that was when I moved up here in 07. And like, even then, like it had just started gentrifying. He had it's no different than in Nashville, man. Like back when, you know, when I lived out there, when you know, in the early 2000s, they were just tearing down Joe Johnston projects. They had just gotten rid of the Nations. Like all that stuff was crazy as hell too, you know? Shit, Joe Johnston used to be really, that was wild out there. Like
Wow.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. Close to all that. Close to Meharry, close to Fisk, right? Like not far from a lot of stuff, you know?
Yeah. You go there today, man, and this, you know, completely, I won't say completely, but a lot of gentrification has definitely happened. And it's not only that, it's like a popping area. You know what I mean? People are clamoring to get in that area and get new builds or renovations, you know what I'm saying? And they're gobbling up that area because it's pretty close. You know, it's pretty close to downtown.
Oh yeah, that's a great area to be in. Not to mention, it's not too far from Vandy. It's like, you know,
it's not.
It's a sweet.
It's really not, man. It's probably. I mean, it might be about 3 or 4 miles.
I remember that pocket, man. That was like a nice little area, and you know, geographically, I remember the first thing that actually came over there when they started really. When I remember it starting to kind of change in my time was when Yazoo put that brewery there.
Yeah.
You know, when Yazoo went in there, then it was like, oh, it was like this one little thing. You start kind of inching in, and over time, you know, they tear down the projects. You know, that vacant lot area gets filled with some more property, and then boom, it's different. You know?
Yeah. I forgot about Yazoo's location over there. That's funny because they moved from there, and then they went over to kind of like the Gulch area, like right behind the Gulch, kind of in that little pocket.
That was my area back in the day, boy.
Yeah, I was about to say that was right up the street,
right behind me.
Yeah,
I jumped the train tracks. Like I went up, you know. So my window in my apartment, I had a ladder. You can climb up that ladder and get onto the train tracks. I could jump over the train tracks and go straight down to the Gulch.
That area where Yazoo was over by Joe Johnson, you know, Fisk. TSU is kind of up the street. All of that area, North Nashville, kind of down.
That was close to where you ended up buying, right, Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
Like it was a little further east, but still, like, you know, like that whole corridor, man. Like Jefferson was hot. Like I went back when Platinum Bound was over there, and it was like basically running a mixtape spot out of an abandoned building, like right. I mean, next to Fisk and Meharry, like it was ridiculous. Like it was right on that corner.
Yeah, we were right down the street from there. If you take Jefferson on down to Rosa Parks or what was 8th Ave, we were right there in Buena Vista.
I remember that was my favorite angle of the city. Like if you were on that side, like, you know, if you were on, because
looking from the north side into downtown,
north side, like it just I felt like that was like the nicest like skyline view to me. You know what I mean? It was just real clear.
Yeah, you kind of had the Batman building to the left of it, like kind of back a little bit. You had like the state capitol building. It was sitting up on a hill. Definitely. Yeah, I would agree. I don't know when's the last time you went to that?
Bro, it's been so long, and I've seen pictures, so but I know it ain't like I ain't been. Last time I went down there, was 2010ish, and like so they had done the the Symphony Hall was there. They had rerouted 8th Avenue, like my little stomping ground. Like they had rerouted that whole street where Lafayette was, so you couldn't really drive through there the same. It's all weird.
Yep.
But it was nowhere. Like I know now it's like crazy because that was before Nashville really hit that huge spike where it was booming so crazy that people were moving there. Like it was like I think it was more people moving there per month than any other city in the country at the time, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the number, but yeah, man, it was crazy, man. It was like hundreds per day, though. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was just like, this is nuts, man. Yeah, that created the boom. A lot of change, which I'm not necessarily too opposed to, but there's some of the gentrification, man. It's unfortunate the way that it happens, and the cost of living starts to go up, and you're pricing people out. I mean, we were over in the Nations at one point. For those that don't know, that's Sylvan Park area or whatever. But if you cross over to Charlotte, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
If you cross into that area, I mean, that area boomed all the way out. It's breweries over there. Southern.
That was a massive area, man. Like that's the thing. Like that, it's interesting because, and I'm going to cut you. Like it's interesting because the entire culture of project housing was an initiative that the government started at a certain time, and they basically decided to end it all at the same time too, because, early 2000s is when you start seeing people move back into cities. And I really feel like there was a systematic, I was talking to a guy when I moved up here because they started gentrifying DC so heavy. And I was like, man, it's crazy because every city you go to, this is happening. Right. And you can recognize that, they were like, let's tear down these projects and put up, row homes or single family, townhouses, but also then once again, raise the price. And certain areas might get a little bit more love. So they get the high rises, they get the condos, and then they start pricing folks out. And, they're actually taking, which it's not, projects weren't a great thing per se for a lot of reasons, but you're taking a space that one time might have housed thousands of people, and now you're only housing hundreds of people, right? So that's another thing, right? Or maybe half as many.
Right.
Even if you make some of it affordable housing, it's not accommodating the numbers. So people move to the outskirts of the city, and it's just, it was just really interesting to see that happen in our lifetime because, I think culturally, and this is not culturally as far as Black people, just culturally as far as America, that was a thing, because project housing catered to a lot of immigrants. It always catered to the group of people that were succeeding, the last group of folks that lived in it. And what people often don't recognize is that, for lack of a better way of saying it, it's like this is the newest version of people who are, underprivileged would move into project housing, right? Eventually, I think overwhelmingly it became Black people in a lot of areas for price and so on and so forth. And there was also systemic things that happened. But ultimately, might be a lot of Puerto Rican people in some neighborhoods that live in certain large, mass number housing buildings, right? For lack of, for project housing, whatever you want to call it. It could have been Irish people at one point in time. It could have been Italian people, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. It is, man. To that part, not seeing that part per se, but kind of reading about that. I'm trying to think what it was that I actually read that kind of documented it. It was a book on redlining. I think that's that was one of the main things. The pieces from it. Laws put in place specifically to, prohibit the migration and moving in of Black folks into predominantly white neighborhoods. The shit literally happened. It's so crazy to even say it, but that's how they did it. You know what I mean? And that's, unfortunately now it's like the get back. Now it's like those neighborhoods are so, still close to inner city or downtown. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And now the trend is coming in and wiping them out, people gobbling up that property and then raising up, the cost and things like that.
It's so sad because it is.
By those people, it's not typically Black people. You know what I'm saying?
It's such a systemic thing, and it's so obvious to see that you really hit it right on the head. It's like this property was in the city. So at the time of white flight and people leaving, more urban areas and going out to the suburbs, and the dream they sold was the white picket fence, the small yard with the dog, 2.5 person nuclear family, whatever, right? And then all of a sudden it's like they switched it up. Oh no, this downtown property is worth a lot of money. You got a whole lot of people living in here. We could knock this down and charge 10 times as much and have it. And the people that can afford to move in there, of course, aren't necessarily people of color, aren't necessarily minorities, right?
Right.
And
not predominantly.
No, of course not. I mean, well, then that just has to do with the accumulation of wealth in this country and who generally is going to have that, right? I mean, I think it's, you may see that trend change over a long arc of time, but it's going to take quite a while before, you start seeing, I mean, it's nice to know Jay-Z might be able to buy a block up, but Jay-Z's one of, X amount of people, right? Yeah. I mean, I think the mentality is changed for a lot of people who are seeing that there is that's a smart thing to do. I think for a long time, it wasn't the way people thought, right? That had money. So if you are a person of color and you get money, oftentimes, if you're smart about it, you're looking at owning property, as opposed to things, right? But
no, absolutely. I think that's one of those, and people are talking about it more too. But from a property standpoint, generational wealth standpoint, something that was, definitely withheld from people of color, Black people. I think they're looking at it now, like seeing and knowing, like, okay, this is how those strides can be made from a wealth standpoint, not, rich or whatever, like for 5 minutes, but it's like, not only setting yourself up, but, generations to come. Hopefully, the story it's so crazy, man, to think about our story, man, and like how long it's taken us to get to where we are. It's interesting, when I think about it, like what Knox will see in his lifetime, what your kiddos will see in their lifetime, and how things like continually change, hopefully for the better. It feels like it's getting better. It's definitely getting better. I shouldn't say that. But like, I'm curious to kind of know what like they're going to see, like, and what we can continue to share with them and help them make even bigger strides than what we've made. Be sure to visit FlyDialogue.com to find out more about us, including our radio station where we stream hip hop 24/7. I'm telling you, we're literally jamming as we speak. And we also got a craft beer blog called Cream, Craft Rules, Everything Around Me, and plenty more. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the craft beer app Untapped, or on YouTube. Just search FlyDialogue on all of those platforms, even on Google. Be sure to follow us, friend us, subscribe. Ultimately, just check for us. We love to have y'all, and we look forward to connecting with you. Peace.
We're going to do it like this. So I always been kind of a jerk. They say I'm late for dinner. I would say on time for dessert. It's just the way I always looked at it. But those who love me, they could look past it. No, I ain't saying they look past me. They saw me for who I was and that impacted me. But that's family. If you don't like it, move past me. But don't cut me off and try to distract me. Cause if mama can't reach you, then them pimps will. That boy Iceberg, cold as a wind chill. Can't nobody deny that nigga been ill. But see, my pop spoke words that was instilled. Now that's some shit that ain't affected by how friends feel. When my white friends ask me how my skin feel. Same as yours, but mine's probably better. But fuck it, cause that don't mean we can't live this life together, right? Or is it wrong that I got an opinion? Honestly, I ain't scared of some competition. So work on yours, I'll work on mine. And I'll meet you at the top and we can both do this. Shine. Sunshine.